If you've ever found yourself stuck staring at a blank page in your new journal, or maybe you're just not sure what to include in your journal that you're working in this video I wanted to share 10 easy ways to fill your journals with examples from my own art journals and junk journals so that you can get started with creating. So my first one for you is one of my favourites and just a classic. It's collage and ephemera, of course, it's papers. Interesting images that you see in magazines and newspapers, cutouts from old books, armed with just some scissors and glue and even a stapler. There's so many paper bits that you can collect in everyday life, the ephemera that we come across. So things like tickets, receipts, labels, tags, wrapping paper even, postcards, paper napkins, stickers, maps, business cards. Honestly, the list is absolutely endless. I feel like even if you just focused on this first tip alone, you won't run out of things to collect and hoard for your journals. There's just so many different things you can come across, and it's a really interesting way to collect the things that sort of encapsulate your life at this time, to create that time capsule. If you looked back in like 10-20 years time, imagine how different all of these things would be and the memories that you would be able to remember just from seeing all of these different things that you collect. So that's why I absolutely love to collect any bits of paper really in my journals. Number 2 is pockets. So if you've now collected all of these different paper things, you're probably thinking, well, how do I actually include them in my journals? So making tuck spots or adding pockets and envelopes is a really nice way to just create that place to hold all these different things. And there are so many different ways to make a pocket, such creative ways to create like double pockets and fold out pockets. Again, you could get absolutely lost in all of the different ways that you can create, mini little envelopes to hold notes and mementos, ephemera from everyday life. You could use envelopes from cards that you get maybe for like birthdays and holidays, or even ones upcycled from junk mail, just like a brown envelope that includes things that aren't that interesting but that you can use within your journals. So creating those pockets to hold treasures essentially within our journal. Now this next one is an absolute journaling classic, and it's really great if you don't necessarily want to include a lot of writing in your journals but you still want to be able to have some words within it. So quotes are a great way to do this. So you could find some on Pinterest. I like to keep a board with some of my favorites saved, or even in a commonplace book. So from books that you read or things that you hear, you can save them. And then when it comes to adding things into your journal, you've then kind of got somewhere to go to already have these quotes collected. You could also have lyrics from your favorite songs, lines from poems that you like that work too. And it's also a great way to practice your hand lettering. So if you're not confident with your handwriting, please give it a go. Promise it won't be as scary as you think it is. I know people really don't like their handwriting sometimes, but it's all about practice. So include some of your own handwriting, or maybe if you're not as comfortable, you could cut out letters and you could print them out or use a typewriter. Just ways to explore new fonts to include within your journals and having that as a point of reference, because I think oftentimes we see our journals as finished pieces, but especially if you're art journaling, they are a really great tool, just for practice and for play. So having them as reference and being able to think, oh, I had this quote and I did it in such a font and I really want to, do something like that in another project, is a really great way to be able to interact with our journals in that way. So filling them up in a way that feels a little bit more productive too, I think. And that's the real beauty of quotes, is that not only are they then practice for adding lettering to our pages, but they can also speak to particular feelings or emotions that you might want to include within your journal pages too, without necessarily writing all the ins and outs of what you might be feeling. I also love to use my journals as a place to learn and practice new skills, which is why I'm excited that Skillshare are sponsoring this video. As you guys know, I've been wanting to explore more mixed media within my journaling, and I've been taking a class taught by illustrator Omar Wynne about toned paper and inks that's really been helping me to explore this. I've enjoyed how everything has been broken down step by step and learning how to capture the essence in flowers, in particular with value and using sort of light and dark inks. It's really inspired me to think about new ways that I can use all of those brown recycled papers that I have in my stash and apply inks and use them in backgrounds in my journals. And with all the blooms that summer brings, I'm looking forward to spending time documenting the different flowers within my journals with these new techniques. So Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, and they have thousands of classes led by experts across film, illustration, design, productivity, and so much more. So if you want to join me in starting your own learning journey on Skillshare this summer and explore some new passions, the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now, one supply that is so versatile when it comes to journaling is washi tape. I don't know about you, but I have so many washi tapes, probably more than one person needs. But they're so great for using in our journals. So whether it's adding in tip-ins, so photos and postcards, if you don't want to stick the whole thing down, especially if there's something written on the back of the postcard, for example, you can just use the washi tape to attach it and then be able to lift it up and still see what's written on the reverse. It's also great if you want to then hide some writing underneath that tip-in too. You could also use your washi tape to create borders or frames around certain elements on your pages. You could use them to add page tabs to your pages, so adding them on the edges of your page, and just generally they add a really nice touch of pattern just from an aesthetic point of view. So you could use a few grouped together. I like to do that in a little bit of like a collage cluster, but with washi tapes to add some interest, whether it's a group that all have similar color schemes or even ones that are just clashing patterns, and it's just something fun to add as a bit of a design element to my pages. My next idea for you to fill your journals is to create themed pages. So you could explore a specific theme like nature or traveling, maybe even a favorite book or movie, and then use colors and images and quotes that reflect that theme. So for example, with nature journaling, you might want to combine like a pressed flower from your garden. You might write about your walks in nature or things that you've seen, dried leaves, different things that you come across, especially if the seasons are changing. You might want to sort of document the different things that you notice, and then over a period of time that can be a really interesting way to build up a page. Or for movie and books, you could sort of document the ones that you've been reading and watching. You could have reviews and include maybe like drawings of different scenes or the things that you liked from a particular book, so maybe like quotes, things like that, to include within your journal pages. And having that theme is a really interesting way, I think, to build up a bit of a collection of the same types of pages and have that as like a go-to when you're feeling stuck for what to journal about. Now, my next tip for you is less of an actual thing to include and more of just a way to include something. So it's a bit of a challenge, but it's a fun way to push yourself creatively. So try working with just a handful of supplies. It might be a certain color palette, or maybe you pick like 3 materials. So like your acrylic paints, your collage papers, and some needle and thread, for example, and then see what you can create by working within these constraints and get creative with your limited number of supplies. My mantra is always, start where you are and use what you have. So I think if you're a beginner, this is a particularly great way to learn sort of how to use your supplies without feeling overwhelmed by thinking you need all of the supplies, because you'll really be able to see the things that you can create with just a few supplies to hand, and I think it's a really great way to, like I said, push yourself creatively and come up with new ideas for ways that you can create. So like the different layouts and the different focal points that you can create within your pages. Sewing is another one of my favourite techniques to include within my journals, and the great thing is that you don't need to be a sewing expert. I'm certainly not, though I do want to make it my mission to master my sewing machine at some point. Adding hand-stitched elements to your pages can really help to create texture, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You could use it to add little bits of fabric to include texture and patterns within your journals, or you could just add it down the edge of a page. That's something I like to do just for a bit of interest. You could also use it as a way of folding up a page to create a pocket, for example. There's lots of different ways that you can include it within your journals, and I think it's such a fun way to add a textural element to your pages. Now, my next tip for you is to take a record of the different paints and pens, etc., that you have and document your supplies within your journals. So you can create a log of the supplies that you have in your collection, and this can really help you to see what you have, find things that you might have forgotten about and you've not used in a while. A fun exercise you can do is to create different colour schemes that you can then use within other projects. So think about how you can group different materials together. And I really think this can also help with shaking off, like the perfectionism that we can have sometimes with journaling. And again, help you to see your journal as a place that you can come to, not only to document and to record your memories and sort of memory keeping, but also to practice, to play, and just to experiment with your art supplies. If you're still feeling uninspired, prompts are such a simple way to help you to spark ideas and find your new favourite techniques. So whether it's like one word prompts or a couple of things to just help you have that jumping off point and something to start with within your journals. So I'd recommend checking out this video here. I've got all about prompts and how you can use them within your journals to help you kickstart your creativity. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.